Welcome to Edifying Together with Tamir D. Harper, a podcast dedicated to empowering teachers of color, brought to you by Edifying Teachers, the fastest growing community of educators of color in the country. Join us throughout the school year as we follow the journey of Tamir Harper, a black male educator in his first year as a classroom teacher in West Philly.
We have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Patrick Harris out of Detroit, Michigan, a storyteller, a truth teller, and an OG community builder. Patrick, how are you today?
I feel great. I feel good. The sun is out, finally.
The sun is out. Listen, Melanin is about to truly appreciate all of this sunshine.
Period.
So, and I know the fro loves it too, right? I'm in a lock style, but you know the fro loves it.
No, I try to figure out what I'm gonna do with it. I would say sometimes it's gonna do what it wants. Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's kind of where we are with this today.
It's the beauty of natural hair, right? The beauty of natural hair.
Oh yes, amen.
But Patrick, you're currently in the classroom as a black male educator, and we know only 2% of our nation's public school teachers specifically are black male educators. What made you want to teach?
First of all, it's so funny. Well, thank you for having me. We give the education world more credit because we round the 1.8 to 2%. When we know it's definitely lower than 2. But I've wanted to teach since I was very young. Since I was a preschool student, I was fascinated with the magic of the classroom. I had a preschool teacher who allowed me to sit in the classroom with my cousins, even before I was eligible to come to preschool. And so I had a phenomenal education or a phenomenal experience with teachers from K through 12, elementary, middle, high school. I just had phenomenal teachers. And it was something about the art of teaching in that way that made me intrigued about this way of life, right? And then when I went to college, I said, okay, I learned more about myself as a black man, as a black queer man. I learned more about power and privilege and the ways in which that, plays a part in Black people's experiences in a very clear way. It's the time when I was in college where I was faced with racism and homophobia up close. And I realized in that way that teaching would be my form of daily resistance. You know how some people, they do art, they write, they speak, they protest, right? My call was to teach, right? And so that's what I did. There was also a part of me that was dealing with a lot of trauma. And the way in which that I processed that trauma was through teaching. So odd and so weird. But I was like, man, I'm really struggling with this. I'm a lesson plan, right? Like that was a really big thing for me. And so it was, the being in love with the art form. It was understanding the necessity of it. And then it was my own personal journey that led me to being a teacher and being in the classroom for this long.
Wow. So the magic of the classroom, the art of teaching, your daily resistance. I know when I'm entering the classroom now, when I got to write those lesson plans, I know who I'm calling to help out on their front. But that is powerful, right? You also introduced a conversation that's not often had, the intersectionality of Blackness, right? We oftentimes separate queerness and the LGBTQIA plus community from Black folk and not intersect them, right? Black folks are multidimensional, right? What has been that experience in a district, right? You're carrying both of those stories with you, right? So how does that play out for you?
It's so interesting because when you enter the profession, you get so much praise, right? You are the unicorn of the profession. You are it. You're the it girl, right? Like Everybody wants a black male teacher in the building because we are so rare and hard to find. And I'm talking about black male teachers, not black male administrators. I'm not talking about gym teachers. I'm not talking about disciplinarians, right? I'm talking about black male certified teachers, no shade. And so when you add the queerness to it, it kind of makes people go, right? And so what I did, what most black male teachers do, was I joined community organizations, right? And there are so many of them across the country who are dedicated to really amplifying the voices and the experiences of black male teachers to keep them in a classroom a little bit longer. But those spaces are so heteronormative that I often never really truly felt like I was able to be myself, right? Even though there are black gay men, black queer men, all across the conference room floor, we're not naming the experiences of black queer men and the ways in which we experience classroom teaching every day. And so while I enjoy I ain't gonna name no names today, but while I enjoy hearing so many incredible speakers who are black men, who are prominent in education, who get paid 10, 20, $30,000 to come up and speak in front of people, and while so many other black men teachers felt inspired by that, they did not prepare me to be called a fag by a student. They did not prepare me to be the topic of conversation between parents in the first week of school. They did not prepare me to be targeted by the media for books that affirm my experiences to be banned, right? And so when we're talking about black male educator spaces and supporting black male teachers, you can't do that fully without supporting black queer men, because we truly are upholding this profession.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And it is, you opened a lot right there, right? And I think one of my largest questions, and I'm going to preface it with, in spaces, I'm a firm believer of saying I'm not answering that question, right? Because it isn't my burden to give free advice. So you can say that as well to me on this one. But how do school districts and community organizations actually get on the front line and support black queer male educators?
We can start first by paying them, right? Pay them. Put your money where your mouth is. You say you support us, you say you want us here, well, you probably should pay us like you made it, right? And I don't mean pay for more work. I mean pay for our credentials. I mean pay for our degrees. I mean pay for our certifications, and pay for the extra labor that we are going to have to do just by being black men or black queer men in the building. Let's be clear about that. Additionally, it's important that we have conversations about our career trajectory, right? So often, black men are forced into disciplinary roles. We are expedited into leadership over black women who have been in the profession longer than us, right? And sometimes against our will, right? I know so many black male teachers who were great disciplinarians or great gym teachers, no shade, and they were promoted to vice principal or dean of this or dean of that simply because they were black men, right? And what we think about masculinity in the education space. There's so much sexism that is in a profession that has been a predominantly woman space, right? So it's important to talk to us about what our trajectories are and support us in those spaces, right? Some of us just want to be in a classroom, support us in that. Some of us want to be able to have a business on the side and be able to teach, support us in that. Some of us want to be able to go into leadership. Don't rush us, but support us in that, right? And then pay us along the way. Thirdly, it's important that you provide the spaces needed to ensure that we are safe in the building, and that we are able to speak our mind, especially those Black men who are in predominantly white spaces. Um, and then lastly, just push against um, misogyny in all forms, right? Having Black female teachers in the building is not enough, right? Especially if that means that more men in the building means silencing women. That's not what we want to do, right? We want to make sure that we are um, pushing against misogyny and hypermasculinity, because those don't save children, right? I've seen too many videos in the last 3 months, in the last 6 months, in the last 7 years of Black men using their masculinity to wrestle students to the ground, to wrestle young women to the ground for the sake of hoodies and cell phones and all those things that really don't matter, right? So I can go all day, but I think that those are the things that are top of mind for me right now.
Wow, I appreciate that. And it is very important for us to call it out, right? That Black women are oftentimes left behind in conversations, right? Definitely when we think about leadership, I am watching a superintendent search happen right now, and there's not one Black woman in the search as the finalist. So
Yeah.
I think in a larger conversation, right, that 1.8%, the 1.8% that is in the classroom, how can they amplify the voices of Black women? How can they support? How can, to be frank, what is your one piece of advice for every man that has the privilege to ensure that our Black women have the support they need in the classroom?
To get out the way. Get your ass out the way. I think that we really struggle with that. I think there are so many articles and think pieces, but it really is simple, right? Like, say no to that opportunity because you know it belongs to the sister down the hallway, right? It means yeah, passing that opportunity up. It means collaborating, right? It means putting as men, when cisgender men, we are so egotistical, right? And so that means doing our own self work to make sure that we walk in the building as whole and healthy as we possibly can be, so that we have the capability of making room for Black women. That means we need to be enrolled in therapy, right? So that we can analyze the relationships with our mothers and our aunties and our grandmas, right? So that when we enter the classroom space, in the school space, and we're interacting with these women, we are, showing them the most respect as we possibly can, and we are not furthering systemic oppression for them.
Wow, and systemic oppression is so alive and well, right? Finding Tamika is an audible book that I just listened to and participated in the Twitter chat about how the news does not talk about the disappearance of Black women, right? Mm-hmm. And as we think about it in the classroom, Black girls are disciplined at a disproportionate rate than any other race and gender, right?
Absolutely.
What is your vision for education? As you think about being in the classroom, what's your vision?
My vision for education, I'm really struggling with this because it's evolving every single day, because I'm so reflective, and so many teachers and educators, we don't get the opportunity to really reflect because we're so concerned with the next day, the next lesson, the next unit, semester, school year, etc. So I can't say I know, but what I can say that I know for sure is that I want students to be able to freely explore themselves in the world in a safe environment. Everything I do is through that lens. I don't necessarily know if schooling is necessary for education the way in which we do it now, but I do know that there is power in community. There's power in people coming together for a common purpose, right? For the betterment of themselves, their families, their community, and society as a whole.
Yeah, there's power in community, and that is. It reminds me of the African proverb: "It takes a village to raise a child," and
Well,
that is we talk about it indirectly, but that's the community. That is the community that really ensures that we are safe, that we are healthy, that we are good, that we can make it to OG status, and even one day into the classroom. So I will close by just asking you in the state of America right now, what will you charge every elected official, every leader, every superintendent, every principal, every dean of students, every health, gym teacher or PE teacher and health teacher to do to change the system that we're sitting in right now?
go to therapy. But honestly, I think there is not enough emphasis in doing our own self-work. There is not enough emphasis in taking time to truly make sure that your heart is right and that you have healed the wounds of the past. Mm-hmm. We are so just like engulfed with making these decisions for other people and quickly, when we have so much uncovering that we have to do about ourselves, right? I became a better teacher when I went to therapy, right? And I started to uncover the patterns of my own childhood, and that made me realize, yeah, that's why I struggle when a principal comes in unannounced, right? Yeah, that's probably why this student triggers me in that way, right? This is why I have trouble listening in this particular way, right? And so there isn't enough anti-racist books in the world that is going to get you to do your own self-work. You have read enough, your toolbox is full, right? Our toolboxes are overflowing with things. It's time for you to actually sit with all of that you've learned and to truly reflect on your life and figure out what you can do to improve, make those improvements, and then we can continue to make the decisions for the betterment of our children and our education system.
Say it again for the people in the back. Do some self-work. If you ain't doing some self-work, if you aren't sitting in therapy, then Houston, we have a problem and we need to address that because you are doing a disservice for our students. Patrick, you almost made me break out in sermon real quick. I appreciate your time and really pushing for us to do better so that we can do better for our students. And as we talk about edifying teachers, not only in the mentorship space, but we also have to ensure that we are amplifying the message, that we have to check on ourselves and check ourselves in spaces so that we can actually do the work and do the better for the betterment of students that we have the honor and privilege of standing in front of and teaching every day. So, Patrick, I appreciate you, good brother. Thank you. Still daylight outside, so you can go enjoy the sun just a little bit.
To the river. To the river. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well.
Thank you for tuning in to Edifying Together with Tamir D. Harper, a podcast dedicated to empowering teachers of color, brought to you by Edifying Teachers. Edifying Together is a joint production based on the award-winning Education Reboot podcast from Arthur Jones II, hosted by Tamir D. Harper.